Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Sarah Stevenson Tuesday Morning Forum. I'm Mary Johnson. I think most of you know me. And we also have as facilitators Laura McCletty, Carlenia Canty in the back. We have Jackie Walton Edwards, Nathan McGarrath, and she's going to be our timekeeper. We have Winston Robinson. We have Steve Johnston on the computer. And we have Sarita Sherrill, who is our chaplain. And Sarita is not here this morning, is she? Okay. Jackie, will you lead us in a prayer? Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you so very much. I'm just having gathered here this morning. We ask that you just bless the proceedings, don't bless each and every person that is here, and for those who are on the way. We thank you for your so very many blessings. In the name of the Son, coming King.
Amen. Thank you. Okay, the forum runs from 8:30 until 10 o'clock. If you have announcements, we'll take the last 10 minutes for announcements. But if you have a lengthy announcement, you can also send it to Steve Johnston over there. Okay. And let's see. Do we have any first timers here? Do we have anyone here for the first time? Okay, could you introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Phyllis Holly Ward. Been in Charlotte about 3 years, so I'm just wanting to come out and support, get to know people and what's going on.
Thank you. Welcome and come back.
I will.
Okay.
Thank you.
We also have a virtual audience, so we're not the only ones that you're talking to, but we also have a virtual audience, and so we appreciate them too. Okay, our guests today, we have the City Council District candidates, and let me name them. We have Ms. Mary Barrett, and she is opposed by Mr. Malcolm Graham, and which neither one of them are here this morning. Ms. Barrett indicated that she would not be able to be here. We haven't heard from Mr. Graham. Also, Mr. James Bowers is opposing incumbent Victoria Watlington, and this is Victoria Watlington. I know we all know. Okay, and Mr. Bowers is not here, and he has not indicated whether he would be here or not. Also, we have District 6, which is the incumbent is Tarek Bakari, and he has not indicated whether or not he would be here or not. And we have his opponent is Stephanie Hand, and she's here this morning. So we actually have two candidates here this morning so far. It could be that they will come in. But so far, we have Ms. Victoria Watlington of District 3 incumbent, and we have Ms. Stephanie Hand, and she is the opponent of District 6, Tariq Bakari. They're going to each speak and give their, and you have a little bit, you have more time because you're just you two. So I'm going to let you two speak, say what you need to say, and then we're going to take questions from the audience, and I'll call on the people when they raise their hands. Laura and I, we both co-facilitate this. So we will call on the ones out there. And Nathalie is our timekeeper. So now we will use the time for the questions, okay?
Okay.
So we're going to give them try to ask a question within 30 seconds, 30 to 45 seconds, something like that. And then you can answer and try not to, well, since we don't have a lot of people here, you can not be too long, but long enough. Okay, so we're going to start by letting you introduce yourself. And I think we're going to start with Ms. Hand because she's the newbie on the block, okay?
Well, good morning. Good morning. My name is Stephanie Hand, and I am your candidate for Charlotte City Council District 6. Is that what you're asking, Ms. Mary?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, and I want you to speak. I want you to give your 5-minute.
Oh, you want to do at the same time?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am. Okay. No problem. I am from Morehead City, North Carolina, and transitioned here as a student athlete at the University of North Carolina at Charlotte. Go 49ers. And then, yeah. You two online as well. Go 49ers. I also, as I graduated from the University of North Carolina at Charlotte, I was employed at the airport and moved up in the ranks relatively quickly and became the operations manager at the Charlotte Douglas International Airport, project manager from Florida to New York City. And a part of my portfolio was Concord Mills Mall coming here at Concord Mills. I negotiated with the city of Charlotte the lease extension at the airport. I then transitioned into the civic community with workforce housing to do wraparound services and engage the philanthropic community, the faith community, the business community, and the civic government community to wrap around for workforce housing for our siblings, our citizens that are in the cracks of society. They don't make enough to get subsidies and they make too little to survive. And so really saw the underside, if you will, of our society, but I saw the resilience of the people of the city. And then I answered a call into ministry, and presently I am a United Methodist clergy person serving the conference office. We have 1,100 churches. What I'm running for and what I'm standing for is I believe our city and every single zip code desire safe communities. Where you live, where I live, where we all live, we want to live and have a quality of life. Number two, strong economic development in our communities, not only at 28210, but exactly in this great city, because I believe city rises and falls on how we treat those who are underserved in our community. And so there's an equity opportunity that we can do better with in this great city. Also, it is important that we deal with our traffic concerns in our city and our transportation concerns in our city, to have bus systems with schedules that meet the needs of the bus riders, a bus system where we're also understanding why people are calling out when they're calling out, so that there's timeliness and efficiency of our transportation system, and also expanding upon what we're presently doing to meet the needs of this great city. Stephanie Hand, Charlotte City Council, District 6.
Okay, Ms. Victoria.
Good morning. How y'all doing?
Good morning.
I'm Victoria Watlington, as you may know, the City Council member representing District 3. And I'm glad to be here this morning. I do want to let you know, I think I let Ms. Janet know that I do have to cut out here at 9 o'clock, but I'm happy to come back and connect and continue to work with you. But I'm Victoria. I stay over on West Boulevard. I've been in Charlotte for the last 13 years. I'm a North Carolina native from Fayetteville, a proud Army brat. Both my parents are U.S. Army retired. I moved back to North Carolina after attending the University of Florida. I'm a mechanical engineer and also systems engineer, as well as project and operations manager by trade. I got involved with politics, if you will. I don't consider myself a political person, but more a community service person, because when I moved into my neighborhood, about 2 weeks after moving in, I got a flyer on my porch and it said, "Come out, we're trying to get our neighborhood association started back." And so I went to the meeting and immediately just completely fell in love with some of my neighbors. I think about some of my neighbors that had been in their houses and were born in their houses for 50, 60 years. Well, as an Army brat who had previously lived out in Still Creek, you get more of that transient kind of situation. People are moving in and out of the city all the time. But to get to be a part of a neighborhood where folks really had just been born and raised there in Charlotte, it gave me a different perspective. And it also helped me to understand more about how we got to where we were. Because the things that were issues in my neighborhood were things that were not impossible to solve. There were problems that were solved in other parts of the city. And so for me, the question started to be, well, why is it that we're dealing with issues on this side of town that we're not seeing on the other side of town? So I started to get more and more involved. I started to get more and more involved and had an opportunity to attend the Community Planning Academy that's put on by the city. And it has actually come back again. So I believe if the application hasn't closed, that there's an opportunity to join this upcoming one now. But there, I would say, is where I had my light bulb moment. We learned about urban renewal. We learned about Brooklyn neighborhood. We learned about housing discrimination and redlining. And for me, as an engineer, it was, if we designed our way in, we've got to design our way out. We've got to be intentional. We didn't get here by accident. I'm sure many of you probably read The Color of Law during our community book read several years ago, and it really laid it out that the things that we see today, structural racism, is a direct result of de jure and de facto racism. So it built into our laws and into our culture. And so as I continued to get more and more involved and volunteered with the West Boulevard Neighborhood Coalition, United Way, and several other organizations, it became clear that we needed to have collective power and exercise it in a way that could plug into the system, because we can rail against the system all day long, but if we don't understand how it works, we can't impact the outcomes. And so just so happened that my predecessor had already announced that she would be moving on from the seat. And so because I was the land use committee chair for the West Boulevard Coalition and had been working to deliver the West Boulevard Corridor Playbook, or our area plan that's specific to what our community wants to see, my neighbors asked me to run, and they said, you represented us on this side of the aisle. We need you to go and make sure that this is executed. And so that's what we've been focused on, is community-led planning. As we think about how our communities are changing, we want to be at the forefront of that change. And so that's where that Corridors of Opportunity program evolved out of, is how do we look at our corridors that have been historically disadvantaged in, and how do we make sure that the people who live there now get to be in the driver's seat of where we want to go. That includes affordable housing, it includes transportation, it includes economic mobility. And so those are the things that I've been working with my community leaders and my neighborhood leaders on over the last 2.5, 3 years. And so that's why I am still serving and why I'm running again for office, because there's still more work to do. We've got the UDO that is coming down the pipeline very, very fast. We've got to close out the source of income protections. We've got to ensure our workforce development programs keep pace with the opportunities that are coming to our city, especially as we try to get people back to work after the pandemic. So there's lots of work to do. I know that you all know that, and I want to continue to be a resource and an advocate and an effective policymaker for our community. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you for your service. Thank you for your previous service. We're going to take questions first from Ms. Watlington, because she does have to leave at 9 o'clock, and we want to respect that. Okay. I have the first question. You said it is, and then we're going to go to the list. But what is the UDO, and do you support it? And why do some people not support it?
Sure. So the Unified Development Ordinance. Has everybody heard of that before? All right, I see some head nods. The Comprehensive 2040 Plan last year, it was a giant topic of conversation. And what it was the policy or the vision, to some extent, that we wanted to cast for the city. What do we care about? Whether it's equity, whether it's mobility, when I say mobility, I'm talking transportation, whether it's access to jobs. When we look 20 years out, what do we want to see for the city of Charlotte? Who is impacted? Who lives here? How are they enjoying their quality of life? The UDO, or the Unified Development Ordinance, is the sum of all of the existing ordinances that we have right now. And it's the regulatory piece that is supposed to carry out the COP 2040 vision. So when you think about treaty ordinances, how we maintain our treaties, when you think about our subdivision ordinance and what does it mean to develop a subdivision in our city, when you think about zoning, that's a huge one. That's another ordinance that falls within the UDO. All of those things that when you go to get permitting or you want to do business in the city or build in the city, those are the things that make up the Unified Development Ordinance. It really is the law, if you will, of how this city will be built and grow. So where do I stand on the Unified Development Ordinance? I believe that there's a lot of things in there. First of all, it's a necessary evil. You have to have some kind of ordinance that's going to dictate how you grow and what you look like. By and large, a lot of the Unified Development Ordinance, I think we get it right, because it's the things that are not so much controversial. The things that, to me, though, are important about the Unified Development Ordinance is that we've got to be looking at a holistic view. These pieces have to add up with these pieces to give us the outcome that we want. And I think that's the piece where you start to see folks falling on different sides of it. It's not so much the 80% of it. It's the 20% that people are trying to galvanize one way or another around. And so for me, the policy that is driving a lot of the place types in the UDO that is problematic was policy 2.1 from the Comp 2040 plan. And that is the one about density. And so what it does is it would allow every parcel that's currently a single family lot, if you know the old rezoning, things like R3, R5 and below, would allow up to a triplex. And if it's on a main transportation street, like you think about a boulevard, up to a quadplex on that same lot, subject to setback and minimum lot size conditions without requiring a rezoning. That's problematic to me, because as we look at all of the cities that have instituted something like this, it has accelerated gentrification. And where do you think gentrification is accelerated in? In the areas where the land is relatively cheap, namely Black and brown neighborhoods. What we've seen is that though it has been hailed, this idea of, and I'm gonna call it single family elimination, even though, to be clear, it's not an elimination of single family zoning, but what it is an elimination of single family exclusive zoning. But what you see with that is typically you don't see the affordable housing that we're told comes along with increasing the volume of housing stock. Why? Because in Charlotte and in other urban cities, especially in the South, we are recruiting the types of businesses where people are high earners. And then you're getting folks from more expensive cities that maybe have sold their house and they're sitting on $1 million and they can come pay cash. So that's why you start to see on Columbus Drive in Canton Green, a $400,000 duet. That's half the building, not even the whole building. So it's not something that we've seen across the nation that empirically delivers affordable housing. What it is doing is removing opportunities for affordable, smaller homes to be purchased by owner occupants. And so that's a problem.
Thank you. Thank you. And do we have any other? Oh, yeah. I'm sorry. Carlenia is next.
No, Jackie, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Jackie, then Carlenia. Was your question for, and put Winston down? Was your question for her? Okay.
I'll just get, Ms. Watlington, I'm interested in, SRO, single room occupancy here in the city. A lot of our neighbors who have come from Tent City or those that, Ms. Hans was talking about that are vulnerable, they've spent the last couple of years in hotel rooms. And single room occupancy is just so ideal, and we have like the supportive housing. Where do you stand on that, and how can we increase the number of SROs here in the city?
Sure. So I definitely think that on the housing continuum, you've got to have solutions for everybody. And so I absolutely am a supporter of single room occupancy. I was just out visiting with the Salvation Army. They have purchased a hotel out on the west side where they are allowing, and in their case, they've got families there. It's not necessarily seniors, but they're basically reusing a hotel and converting it into opportunities for housing for people who experience housing instability. So I definitely think there's an opportunity for it, and we've got to include SRO in our toolkit in terms of housing options here in Charlotte. Some of the things that we can do as a community is work with our hotel organizations. And we've got several hoteliers who are interested in selling or rezoning, if you will, their offerings to allow for single room occupancy. And that's happening. The county has bought 2 hotels. We're currently looking at a rezoning at the city with the Econo Lodge down on Tryon. So it's a matter of making sure that we've got good regulations and standards so that people can have quality conditions to live in, and make sure that to the extent that we can invest in it as a public entity, that we do that when opportunities are available.
Okay. Carlenia, and maybe 1.5 minutes. Okay.
Hey,
Hey there.
first I want to say thank you, because every time I called you, you returned my call. I was like my representative.
Who was that? Okay.
I just want you to know, so we can document and make sure we have, is there a single or a couple of things that you're planning to do that would enhance economic development, not only off the West Boulevard corridor, but also in the District 2 area? I would like to know one or two things that you're thinking about that you can accomplish to enhance economic development in those corridors?
Sure. So, two things, and I think they go hand in hand. I'm going to answer this not only for economic development, but economic mobility, because I think that they go together. I've been meeting with the CBI, our Charlotte Business Inclusion staff, to really understand how are we setting our minority and women small business targets for participation. How can we enhance capacity building? Because that's what we see. Capital is often the single biggest hurdle for NWSBEs. And we know that particularly for folks in District 2 and District 3, oftentimes entrepreneurship is a viable option for mobility because people may have, they may be returning citizens or re-entering citizens, so they may have things in their background that might make it more difficult to be able to get work. So when it comes to building capacity for our minority and women businesses, that's a piece that I'm very focused on and trying to make sure that we enhance those programs. Right now, we partner with the Urban League and with Goodwill on particular industries. But what I'm pushing for right now is how do we expand those offerings beyond like HVAC and some of the technical fields into things that are more forward facing, like the financial sector, like how we start to see a lot of Black women, particularly moving into the small business space, whether it's restaurants, whether it's salons, whether it's mobile type businesses. Those are the ones we want to really hone in on and make sure that our capacity building programs are tailored for that. I'm also pushing and advocating for more changes as it relates to our bonding for those construction businesses. Part of what makes it difficult for businesses to be able to do work with the city is because the scope is so large, you've got to get a higher bond. And that can be problematic when you start to go to private institutions to try to get it. So breaking up that scope into smaller pieces so that minority businesses can be primes rather than subcontractors is another one that I'm pushing for. One specifically that I've already pushed for was the security contractors with CATs. Okay, we can talk more about it.
We have enough time for one more question from Miss Watlington before she has to go. Who was next?
Winston.
Winston.
Good morning.
Good morning.
You're from Fayetteville. Ms. Hannah's from Morehead City. I'm from Charlotte. There's a running joke that I'm the unicorn.
You are.
So, which to me is a bit problematic because, as you mentioned, we are Charlotte, namely North Carolina. We're both great at recruiting these industries, yet we develop our native talent at a slower pace, and therefore we become displaced. So, what are efforts to develop that talent to maintain the pace of recruiting that these industries are coming in and needing that very specific type of talent?
So I will say that this conversation is one that spans different types of government. I see a school board member in the back. I won't call her out, but I will. Jennifer De La Hara.
He's a member.
It starts there, right? So as far as it depends on us on the city side, some of the things that we're trying to do is expand the mayor's youth employment program. How do we pull high schoolers that we want to be able to expose to different opportunities in terms of industry types? How do we connect those dots there? Another piece is we're investing more in workforce development and connecting those dots more with some of our private partners. I think about the I can't think of the name of it. It's in District 4. Basically, you got carpenters, you got millwrights, you got electricians that you can come to this school that's right up in university area and get your journeyman's card in 2 years. And they have amazing programs that allow folks to come in and get paid to do their training. That is a huge type of economic mobility piece. But it starts with going into the schools, in my opinion, and connecting the dots for apprenticeship programs, which is another thing that we're trying to do more heavily, investing more in the pipeline programs with CPCC and UNC Charlotte. But it takes really rolling up the sleeves and connecting the dots with, I would say, the grassroots organizations, if you will, because that's where I see the dots not being connected. And I know I'm getting a little long with it, but the point of the matter is we've got programs, we got opportunities, but then you don't see the participation in the programs often because people don't know about them. So some of the things that we have to do, we're calling it guerrilla marketing, if you will, and I've had this discussion with Goodwill, is really getting out to the clergy members, being in the churches, walking the streets, canvassing, bringing the programs and awareness of those programs to the people, because oftentimes they are there, but people don't necessarily know about them. But that's just the beginning. It's a lot more to it, but would love to hear your thoughts on it as well.
Okay, let me see if I can get Tommy in before you leave. Okay.
Yeah, my question is, like, I'm 75 years old, and I've noticed that we're losing communities, whole communities. Just like I remember when I was younger, we had First War, Second War, Third War, Black communities. Where are these people going?
I wonder the same thing. Quite honestly, from what I've been asking the same thing for a long time, and what I'm seeing is that people are moving out into the suburbs, if you will. Yeah, exactly. Seriously though, people are going out to kind of our outer ring neighborhoods, some across the line over to South Carolina, and so you're seeing people move further out, Concord, Kannapolis, those areas, and as they continue to rise in the cost of living, people are moving further and further out. So that's what I've seen so far. But I had the exact same question, like, where are folks going and how are they continuing to work, and how are we getting people to work in certain jobs that can't afford to live in the city? And we're, as you can see, we're feeling the squeeze.
Okay, that's it for her, okay? So thank you so much for coming. I think you gave us a lot in a short period of time.
Thank you. I always feel like I don't get to tell enough. Well, y'all have my information. Please, for those of you that had questions, if you want to follow up, I'm happy to do so. I can be reached at victoria.watlington@charlottenc.gov, or you all have my.
I can see both of these ladies being a future mayor of Charlotte.
Oh, Lord Jesus. Right on me.
Okay. Do we want to start over with the same people who was first? Thank you. Let's start over with the same list so that they can ask Ms. Hand the questions first. Jackie.
Mary, just a thought. We want to just have her answer any of those questions that she might have, where we can comment on the ones that we've asked her.
Well, you can actually ask her the same question.
If you want to.
If you want to. You can ask her the same question. You know, now you remember her district is a little bit different, and but of course she will represent all of Charlotte, so she's to be concerned about all of Charlotte also.
Okay.
But we can start with Jackie.
Jackie got that, so
okay, Carlene.
Did you want to ask her a question?
Can she move the district?
Okay.
And
then
then opens in your name. Okay.
And Winston.
Okay. I guess one of my questions is.
Okay.
Winston, did you
have a question?
Oh, am I already up?
No, we're going, she said we're going to do the same.
We just.
Yeah, keep me in the same order.
Yeah, keep it in the.
Okay, well, you were next, Winston, then Tommy.
You want to ask her the same question that you asked before.
You can ask whatever question you want to.
Okay. How would you be a proponent for Black people in the wedge?
How would I be a component?
A proponent for Black people representing a district deeply in the wedge.
Well, first and foremost, I'm an African American woman in this great city. And so the work of the district representatives are for the district, District 6, which I'm running for, as well as the community. I am a United Methodist clergy in the United Methodist Church, and my home church is St. Mark's United Methodist. And so I'm in Clanton Park and West Boulevard doing the work in those areas. And so for the wedge, in my extension for workforce housing, that's the work that I did to ensure that workforce siblings that live in our community that fall below in the minimum wage and not in a living wage, to do wraparound services to help, because upward mobility is a crisis in this great city. How can this city be 50 out of 50 when we have the largest banking systems in America, when we have wealth in this great city? And so I would continue the work that I'm doing presently to engage the faith community, the philanthropic community, the business community, and now the governmental agencies to say, and there are all kinds of community advocacy organizations, to just raise them up, to point them out, to put them in the public square so that they can utilize. We don't have to redo something. We can utilize the talent that we do have in this great city. You mentioned how do we raise the talent up in this city, and because a good portion of people are coming into this great city because it's a quality of life here. I know we talk about affordable housing, but they think that housing is affordable. That's why people are flocking to this great city. And so I think utilizing the talent that we have here, utilizing the organizations that we have, create new organizations that meet the needs of the persons that live in the Crescent, and then call on the faith communities, the philanthropic communities, the business community, and the government communities to, number one, help to resource them, but also put manpower and woman power behind that. I think by doing that in a collaborative manner, we're able to move ourselves forward from 50 out of 50 to being a model for the country.
Okay. Tommy?
Yeah, like I said, I noticed that the Black community is just disintegrating. What can we do to maintain the power that we have? With gentrification and stuff, we're losing the Black community. You know, just because of like we have cheaper property because they undervalue Black property. You know, just like I get a house maybe worth $200,000, that same house moved to another community and it's worth $500,000. So is there anything we can do about this? Because like I said, I'm 75 years old. And I've seen Black community just decline, you know, and what can we do about it?
Great question. And I will say two things. One way that we make change in our communities is the power of the vote, is that our communities have to get out and vote and put people in office that can be engaged in community. And like the sister in the back with the beautiful hat on, stating that we want representation that is with the community and engaged in the community, number one. Number two, so vote. Your power of your vote is important. Number two, engagement, because we have power when we collaborate one with another, when we gather together. I know in Clanton Park, where I actually do work and things, the neighborhood associations are powerful. So formalizing neighborhood associations to be the voice. And then number three, as neighborhoods associations and people are galvanizing together, then you go down to city council and you voice your challenges, your grievances, and actually stay there until something happens, something changes. We've got to be concerned about our Black and brown communities, absolutely, because you're right. Your generation and the generation ahead of you are aging out. So what do? It is complex, but we got to do something to make sure that we don't have another Brooklyn in our park. So you were in Clanton Park with it, yes. So yes, that's correct.
We're gonna do Juanita, then Jackie.
Good morning.
Good morning.
You have quite an impressive bio. My question is, you mentioned something about Concord Mills.
Yes, ma'am.
And you're having something to do with that. I'd like for you to elaborate on, in specificity, what was your role in that, and with the malls that we have here in Charlotte and the malls throughout the country with mass shootings. What is your plan to help curtail that type of crime at the malls?
Thank you for the question. My role when I was serving Charlotte Douglas International Airport was project management. And so I did all new development. And so on our portfolio was, what do we do in Concourse? And there were several big name organizations that were bidding for the area. And we felt that, our organization felt that Concord Mills Malls is very well known throughout the country. And they won the bid. And so I was a part of vetting through the organizations that potentially could go there, and then a part of securing the deal for Concord Mills Mall. The second part of the question is gun violence, is what I hear you saying. Is that correct?
Yes.
It is so important. So a couple of things with the gun violence. I think, and it's not city council, so let me just go ahead and say that. City council has no policy of zoning. That is the state government. Our state house has to create policies that protect us, that's reasonable. I believe that people that want to own guns should own guns, but I think there's got to be a process that they go through to own them. I think assault weapons should be off the docket. Number two, I believe that our communities have to work together with our CMPD collaboratively. And I believe that there's opportunity for our CMPD to live in the communities in which they serve. I think that when you live in the communities in which you serve, you begin to know the neighbors and the barriers that we might have, or the misinterpretations of what we might have of how we conduct ourselves and the biases and the complicit biases that we all have. Those walls get torn down, because then I see you with that beautiful mask on and you see me, and then we can actually have a conversation, look each other in the eye, because at the end of the day, we're American citizens trying to live in America and have a quality of life. The third thing is that we got to just, I think, collaborate together and say enough is enough, and actually demand collaboratively that we change some of the policies that are presently on the books. Those would be my thoughts.
Thank you, very good. Okay, now, Jackie.
Yes, I along with Juanita, what was your role, or who did you work with when you said that you had a collaboration with the philanthropic faith, those entities? And also, how many national night out communities will you visit?
So one more time, I could not hear the last part.
How many national night out communities will you visit?
I'm sorry, please repeat
How many national night out communities will you visit?
So the National Night Out communities, I will visit as many as I possibly can, starting in District 6, but also going out into other communities. I would also definitely research where they are. Somebody say time.
Oh, no,
I'm sorry. But I would be engaged in community as this role as city council representative. So yes, ma'am, I would be a part of those things.
And my first part of the question had to do with what role or what organizations were you with when you were doing the collaboration among the faith, philanthropic, those communities?
Thank you. For example, the state of North Carolina reached out to me during the height of COVID because we were not getting vaccinations in underserved communities. And because of my role with the United Methodist Church, they felt that I was a good point person. So they contacted me, and then I contacted the faith communities that live within those geographical locations. I contacted businesses that or people that I knew had personal contact, so that we could create pop-up vaccination clinics utilizing the properties on faith communities. We were able to vaccinate over 17,000 people within 2 weeks in underserved communities. And so it's really about relationships and networking, because we are resourceful with doing that. It's simply pulling people together, organizing, and implementation.
Thank you. Okay.
Tom.
Is there any way you can get the faith community more involved in your projects? Because I know as an individual, like Little Rock built apartments, the House of Prayer built apartments for low income people. And now you don't see that same drive that they had. You know, so is there any way you can get because black people go to church and they put a lot of money in the church. And so is there any way you can get the faith community more involved in public housing or low income housing, as you call it, or whatever? Because I know as a 75-year-old man, I saw the faith community involved. I knew George Lee from Little Rock, you know. I knew the bishop from the House of Prayer. So is there any way you can get the faith community more involved, because they have a better understanding, since their congregants are poor people mostly?
A great question. And because I am of the faith community, and I'm not going to say everybody in here is, but at least you are in this room, I think it's up to the congregants to say we have to be a part of community. And I am and will continue to do. And I think although it's not advertised, our faith communities are doing some of that already, creating affordable housing, in collaboration. I don't know, there may be one churches that can do it, but it's going to take a collaboration of churches, a collaboration of business community to make that happen, because we all have property. And so how do we maximize the utilization of our property? There are organizations that are meeting already. And so it's just moving it forward to actually deal with the crises that we are having. And since you brought up affordable housing with that, and it's coming together, and I will be a part of those conversations, but I'm going to invite you to come too. Yeah. All right. I came out of Zion. I'm married. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And so it's going to take all of us. And we know that the church was at the core of every movement in America. Civil rights, the church was at the cornerstone of it all. And so we just continue to do that. We're doing okay, but we can do better.
Okay, Winston, is Winston? Oh, okay, Laura, and then Winston.
Okay, the question about the churches, getting the churches involved. My concern is, what do you plan to do to get the cooperation from your fellow council members to get something pushed? That's a whole nother area of concern that you have working with them as well as working with the churches. So how are you gonna do that? Do you have a plan to work with them, collaborate with them, and to get things through?
So it is, and we all know that it takes 6 votes to pass, right? It is so important that we are collaborators as representatives of this great city, because we are representing not only certain pockets of the city, but we're representing the entirety of the city. And if we can't sit down at table or sit behind the closed doors and really talk things through, to work together to come up with a common solution for the city, then you, the voters, then determine who the council member should be. But I will, and that's who I am as a leader now, a coalition builder and a collaborator. And here's the deal. We're not going to get everything. I'm not going to get everything that I want on the table. And it becomes, what is the core values of our city? What's the core vision of our city? And how do we move it forward collaboratively as the city council leaders?
Winston.
So you, as a representative of District 6, how would you push back against the strong market forces of capitalism to fight for more vulnerable neighborhoods or vulnerable pocket communities such as Pine Valley and Sterling that sit in that district along that ever popular Silver Line?
Yeah, I'm very familiar with both communities, and as a representative, we have to advocate for all of our communities, and I will advocate for all of our communities, including our Pine Valley, those that are on marginalized societies, economically depressed communities. You know, I met Ms. Cannon over in Pine Valley when I was over there, and she definitely pulled my ear on what's happening there. And so there's a lot of work that can be done. There's a lot, and I know people say, well, District 6 gets, a lot of the resources in the city. I hear that a lot, but there are certain communities that don't get those resources, that need the resources as well. And I definitely would be a part of those conversations moving forward when elected, if elected.
Jennifer.
Hi, Stephanie.
Hey,
It's great
Jennifer.
to see you. Thank you for putting yourself out for public service, first of all.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Earlier, it was mentioned, there was a question, I think it was Winston that asked it about economic development and job force development. I hope you can hear me okay.
I can now.
And so I wanted to follow up and ask a question, because Ms. Watlington also made a reference to, making sure that the schools are involved, and we were talking about trades. I think it was someone alluded to more trades programming. And I'm not sure if the community is aware, we have so many positions open in CMS where we can't find, a mechanic to run the mechanic program, or an electrician. It's really difficult to attract an electrician who can make $90,000 actually doing the work, and ask them to come and teach kids and only pay them $45 to do it. And so, as part of the economic development process, I'm wondering if you think there's any value into having the Charlotte City Council add to its legislative agenda, which they would present to our legislators. And I see Representative Majid here, and I appreciate his service so much. but beyond the Mecklenburg delegation to Raleigh in general, to help us be able to increase teacher pay so that we can then hire those instructors who can teach children to have those skills for a modern workforce. Because I don't know, I'm wondering if there's room for more collaboration and if you've considered that yet. I know you're just starting to run. I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but I'm just sitting here thinking about the challenges we face. And I would welcome, further collaboration. I'm wondering if you have any thoughts on that.
So we have we have the Board of Education, County Commissioners, and City Council. I think it's important to the city that the three bodies at least have conversations in alignment on certain areas, and of course, the segregated areas that we're responsible for, individuals are responsible for. But we are citizens of Mecklenburg County, of the city, and in order to move it forward, there's some crossover in certain areas. And so, how do we vision, together in a collaborative manner so we can move forward and address employment is a major crisis in every arena in this city. And so how do we, as Mr. Winston said, how do we build back up the workforce? And the questions we must ask ourselves as some of the things that we have from an employment standpoint, are they outdated? Are they gone to, and do we need to bring new things? I think technology must be at the forefront of what we're doing as well, but I also believe in entrepreneurship. And to your point, and to Ms. Congresswoman, y'all got me saying her Congresswoman, Councilwoman Watlington, is that we must do the trade, because I know that in my communities, when I grew up in Black communities, that there were entrepreneurs that did everything from carpentry to brick masons to people who had their businesses cleaning houses. And so that's what Black community did in order to survive and thrive in community.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Yeah. How can you, City Council, County Commission, etc., include the people that's being affected by these changes? Like what I'm saying is, like on every commission, county commission, city council, we always have people making decisions for poor people without asking poor people what do they want. So how can we include these people in our decision-making process and not sitting on our throne making decisions for them?
So I can speak for me. What I'm going to do is engage in community. What I'm going to do is ensure that I hear the voice of the people, that I see them and they see me, so that I can then represent the communities when we sit around the dais. Number two, when we feel as if our voices are not being heard, the way that we change things, and we know what change management is, we have to show up and press the issue is that we want to be heard. And I'm going to make an assumption here is that, like, when we show up to city council to then express, everybody can show up, everybody can speak, then it becomes public, so that we can get it. And then your representatives, pressure, the district representatives to have a voice in community. Those are your, from my understanding, that's your contact person, so that you can, and that we can hear everyone in community and not just some. So thank you for bringing that up. Thank you.
Again, just going back to the scope of talent development, and don't get me wrong, I believe it's a both and. As much as I appreciate the work of Urban League and Goodwill with HVAC programs and entrepreneurship, plumbing, and all that, with all due respect, Honeywell, Ally, Lowe's, they're not looking for HVAC guys. The person who's moving down to displace my grandmother with that $1 million home that they sold somewhere else, they're in position to do that while we're training HVAC guys. What would be a council approach to develop talent for those jobs as opposed to the mid-level, which are great, but how can where's the HR training guys or for people?
So I think as a district representative, in talking to our corporations that are here, I know that there are mentorships in a lot of these agencies, right? And so the question becomes, as you point, how do you create a pipeline? And that means, because we have colleges and University of North Carolina, Charlotte, Johnson C. Smith, Queens College, Central Piedmont Community College. How do we engage them as well? And how do we engage the business community to be able to do these mentorship programs in those communities that we have identified, you have identified, that we need assistance in? So I'm going to ask the community, what is it then that we're saying? Because you're correct, we need better paid jobs. And the upward mobility is upward mobility. Affordable housing is a crisis, but if we don't have better jobs, paying jobs, and I'm not saying jobs, I'm talking better paying careers, because there's a difference between a job and a career, because there's a salary increase with it. So that's what I would add. I can't speak for what the council will do, but I know what I in my mind, because I've seen it with my own eyes in the organizations in which I, number one, ran and were a part of, getting those organizations to create mentorship programs so that kids can come through there and see other opportunities. People, I think that when we're unable to see what other possibilities are, we're unable to really dream the reality that you can do it.
And can we go ahead and get her? Okay, go ahead, and then Laura, and then Tom.
Okay, so I, just, when I mentioned to you guys that I am new here to Charlotte, and I consider myself new about 3 years, but I am here today, honestly, and I am supporting Ms. Hand. And honestly, I've only known her about maybe a month and a half. So I come from, when I say humble backgrounds, you're talking about displacement. I'm a teenage mother. I don't have a college degree, barely made it out of school. When I tell people that the story of my mother's funeral being on my 18th birthday, literally. So just coming from challenging situations, but I will just say it was groups like this that became my education. So I want to commend all of you guys for just being here, your questions, because this is where it started. Now, I tell that humble story to just show the switch around. So I went from owning my teenage sons that I had. Now we own the largest real estate company, second largest in the state of New Jersey. I ran for council and I served 8 years up in New Jersey. So when I met Ms. Hand and understood that she not only is taking a chance, she's taking a chance and she's now making history. Because if you guys understand Charlotte like the way I did, her area is predominantly white rich people. But and so she's making history in a way where she took a chance and now she's switching things. And that's literally what history looks like. It happens like right before your eyes, taking a chance and just getting out there, starting, coming to these meetings like this, and just having a voice. So the reason I took a chance on supporting her, because out of all the candidates when I went to vote, she was the person who listened. I'm just being honest. All the time I have been here, I tried to contact people, and I know how to get involved. But when I tell you, I walked up to her and she sincerely listened, education, and then she backed up what she said. Now, so that was the other part. But I do just want to say that. But more so, I want to just tell you guys, I am so honest. I mean, I'm happy to be here. I will certainly come back. This is a wonderful for people to see, and I'm just excited. So I want to say thank you all, and I say give yourself a round of applause just for actually being here, because this is really where it starts at, just coming out and being a part, and you switch things around just like that, and that's my life and my story. So I guarantee you, I could go around to each one of y'all. I almost can guarantee ain't a person in here been through the challenges that I've been through in my life, but you also see me on the other side. So I've been homeless and I've been on welfare and all the rest of this stuff. But if we don't share, and as Ms. Hand just said, you got to be able to see examples in order for people to, and for people not to be ashamed to say. I'm not ashamed to tell my story, because I want somebody else to follow it, and that's what she was just saying and sharing. So again, just want to commend you all. Thank you for letting me speak and for being here, and you will surely see me again.
Oh, thank you. And we're so proud of what you have accomplished. You didn't let your situation dictate your future.
Yeah.
So thank you so much.
And what's your name?
Really? And what is your name?
Phyllis Hollywood. Yeah, think of Hollywood
Okay.
like that. Okay, so.
Okay, Phyllis Hollywood.
Hollywood.
Not the hyphenated?
Yes, it's hyphenated.
Okay, thank you so much. And Laura has the next
And
question.
I'm glad you just shared what you shared, because my question to Stephanie is, because of where she lives, you accentuate that, thank you. And the person that is serving presently on city council, how are you going to, what are you doing to persuade? I understand her story, which is typical for us to follow good leadership, but the majority of the district that you live in, how are you going to get those votes? That's my question. Is what's your strategy? How are you? Being you is one thing, and we can appreciate you, all of us, you know, just based on what you just said. But what's your strategy to get people to vote just for you? Because that other community is very familiar with single shotting. They've been doing that for a long time. So how are you going to do it? What's your strategy?
So that's a great question. And my strategy is my life story, is to engage with the people of the community, to meet people for coffee, to have conversation, to look people in the eye and let them know who I am and me listen to who they are and to see who they are. And after I tell my story and after I say, because this political beat, we all know it, the politicians show up, political people show up when it's voting time. And then we determine how they do when it ain't voting time. And so I've been in community already in the work in which I've done. And I'm going to continue to call people. I'm going to continue to meet people at the polls. I'm going to continue to knock on people's doors. I'm going to continue to do meet and greet so that they can see who I am. So that not only they can see, everyone in District 6 can see who I am. And in life, we all have choices. And I'm simply presenting myself as a choice that they can choose. And it is my hope and my prayer that they say Stephanie Hayden for Charlotte City Council, District 6.
Okay, thank you. Carlene?
I'm just so in awe. You're a beautiful young lady and very smart. And thank you, regardless of where I really appreciate you. But anyway, Phyllis, I want to say to you, you know, just bless you. But I always tell families that if you tell your story and let everybody, you'll take yours back. Because there's always other people with great stories. Yours is a beautiful story. And that is so important that we are honest and we tell our story to help others. And I would like to ask Miss Laura and Miss Darren, I think you have proven yourself. If we could take, because I know some people came today, just to hear an absent person speak and to let us know. Can somebody, I want to ask a formal question, help me to figure out how we can get our representatives to respond to a text message, an email, or a phone call.
Who's your representative?
You'll have to go.
We get our representative to respond to our
That's
question.
what I meant.
That's what she said.
Send Matt, send him a note. Man,
That's your responsibility.
We do it by, it's not putting them back in office. We don't vote for that person that won't respond to us. That's what we do, or we get somebody that's better than that, that's really representative of us to run in our district.
Jennifer, did you have a question?
Yeah, but not to answer Ms. Watlington's
Oh,
question.
okay.
I just mentioned that first, and then I just wanted to.
This,
Okay, yes.
Jennifer on the list. Okay, Carlenia did, I think Laura
gave the vote, it's an answer, and I voted yesterday, and I did exactly what you, said. But too many people continue to, and I just think that we should let people know that this is happening. I mean, if I took and say, raise your hand, how many could raise their hand and say that this has happened to them? Why would we let it happen to us?
Can I ask a question, Claire?
Yes.
What would, I'm sorry.
Okay, okay, we're gonna follow
Okay.
that. We'll follow her
Okay.
question. Go ahead, and because she wants to know. So I'm going to.
Is that a zero-sum game? What would some sense of compromise look like while we have that representative in position? How, it seems like there's a match happening. How can we find some place of compromise? Or what is tolerable in your eyes?
Okay, so what we're gonna do is, we're gonna get back on track.
Okay, yeah, you're right.
Because, I can answer that question. As long as people feel comfortable in their positions and nobody is, challenging them, and I don't mean at the poll, but challenging them in community. Then nobody holds them accountable, so they're comfortable. So they know that they're gonna win every time. Because people go in there and just vote.
And they
They're
run.
now
you know.
thinking about what's going on in the community. So the next question belongs to Jennifer.
And it was more just a quick comment, because earlier the question was asked about getting the vote out for next year. And I did want to mention that the Mecklenburg County Democratic Party, I saw an email yesterday from James Whitley, they're hosting phone banking for Stephanie. So I just wanted to mention that if there's anyone that has extra volunteer time, and maybe I'll send that email to Steve if we can put that on the newsletter, because that could be a great way here in the next week to help get out the vote.
And all of us, even though most of us in this room do not live in District 6, we all know people who do live in District 6. So we can always reach out to our friends and coworkers and all that who live in District 6. Okay, who's next? Chris.
Hey, good morning.
Good morning.
I notice usually when candidates come, they always advocate for Black and brown communities. And it's no one that ever advocates just for Black communities. And I understand like the percentage wise as far as population and the vote. It's not, I guess, enough Black people to, I guess, vote to make up that Black as far as population, but who's advocating for Black? Like, it's no, everyone else advocates for their communities, but it's no one that advocates solely for us. And usually when something happens or laws take place, everyone gets the benefit except Black communities. So
I think it's as an African American woman in America, we know the disparity and the equity and the justice challenges thereof. As a city representative, it is imperative that the city representative does not just represent their population, because we can have the converse of that as well. But it's important that I take the Black community just as seriously as I take our Anglo community, just as seriously as I take the Indian community and the Latino Hispanic community, because if one community falls, it brings everyone else down as well. So I am advocating for Black community. Also, I'm going to be advocating for the communities of District 6 as well. But I hear you loud and clear on the matter. I could not be a district representative. For example, we have I am a Democrat. We have Republicans in District 6. We have Republicans in the city of Charlotte. And as a leader on city council, it is important that we are hearing the voices of the people of the city. But I hear you loud and clear what you're
It just
saying.
feels like that responsibility always comes on the Black candidate.
I hear you.
Everyone else advocates for their all-white community. Even with the brown communities, like economically, I feel that they are so much anybody because their dollar rotates and they grow and they have businesses and it's just we're stagnated. We're always reaching for everybody.
Got you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you my information because I want to have a continuous conversation with you. Okay? All right.
Okay, and just remember that when you vote, the person that you vote for, that you send to city council, you gotta hold them accountable too.
That's right.
Because if they are representing your district, and your district is majority Black, you expect to see some movement with that person, and some responses from that person with their community context.
And what she's saying is you can elect a Black candidate, they come to you as a Black candidate, represent the Black community. And then when you get on city council, they're representing everybody. Well, you didn't vote for them.
Okay, so
But Jackie representing District 6.
No,
You gotta-
wait a minute. Okay, let's let Jackie.
I just want, to let the public know that the Tuesday morning before, Sarah Stevenson Tuesday before is not partisan.
That's right. And that we really have gotten off track, Stephanie. You have
It's okay.
been here, I know you watched. But we usually, our process that we use is that we have a guest speaker and you will present yourself and they will ask questions. And they have one question. We don't have conversation, we don't have debates. We've gone into that area that we shouldn't be doing that this way. So let's stick with the questions. Let's stick with the questions and let her give the answers. And let's not debate. Thank you.
Okay, good.
If and when you are elected, what is your first 100 days look like? What are the things that you want to tackle first?
The things that I think it's important to tackle is the things that are on the docket right now for city council. I'm going to have to get myself up to speed very quickly because there are some votes that are going to be happening very soon. So understanding the policies and the zoning and all of the intricacies of city council. Number one A or number 1B is understanding my community, understanding the neighborhoods of community, the challenges of the communities, the successes of the community, and meet the people of District 6. And also, number 1 is to understand the complexity of the city at large, the areas that need the most help, the areas that people are already working on. And so those are my top 3 things, not in any specific order, but that I will do within the next 100 days to get myself up to speed with the policies and zoning, the ordinances, the committees, and then also at the same time understanding the communities.
Okay, thank you.
How you doing? I just wanted to ask you, are you looking into other issues within the Black community, that might not be on the forefront right now, like globalization, climate change, higher education, while they might not be as prominent right now, with voters and stuff, but in the future, how are you gonna help ensure that it's not really discussed there really an issue?
So green gas emissions are crucial for the air that we breathe. The canopy of the trees that are in this great city are important to the areas that environment is important to the quality of life in our community. So yes, sir, that is a part of the totality of making and ensuring that Charlotte continues to be a viable city for people to live in. Parks aren't our area, but we got to continue to have those things in order so that our families can benefit from them, and those who are living here, our seniors who are living here, that they can continue to benefit from them, as well as those who are coming. Quality of life is important for, I think, everybody would agree want quality of life in their places and spaces. Great question.
Yeah, I don't mean it harm, but.
No harm done,
if
no harm
you
done.
represent District 6.
Yes, sir.
What are you doing here? I mean, I'm not trying to be funny or anything, but if you represent District 6, like this lady said, you represent a community that's.
We invited her.
We
And just remember that we have people virtually visiting all in Charlotte, including District.
Sorry.
So, okay, does anyone else have a question for this young lady? If not, I want to thank you so much.
Can I have a closing statement?
Yes, I'm gonna let you have a closing statement, and before you have that closing statement, I would like for, our House representative for, District 99, Nasib Majid, to come up and give us a quick update on what's going on in the House. And I said, yeah, I said after, following your.
Thank you. Mr. Tommy, I feel and see your frustration.
No, I'm not frustrated at all.
I agree. All right, so friends, as I share with you, I hail from Morehead City, North Carolina. I grew up on the left side of the tracks. When I was about to matriculate and decide colleges, my counselor said to me, the only thing that you're capable of doing is going to our community college. But I grew up in a household where my father was killed in the Vietnam War. When I was 3 months old, saving his platoon, there is in Cherry Point, North Carolina, on the barracks because of his heroic effort. So I understand what it means to be a public servant. I grew up in the AME zone, so I understand what it means to be in community. I grew up in an all-Black community, so I understand what it means to be in community. And when I got to college on a full scholarship, I had to be called to the office, and they told me that my Pell information was incorrect because there was no way that an individual of 4 could live on the income that I had on that documentation. And I called my mom, they're saying that the financial statement is incorrect. She said, baby, that's what we made. So that's the first time that I knew that I grew up poor. But that status did not determine the altitude in which I've been placed. I remember that counselor that told me all I could do is fill in the blank. That's why I have a doctorate degree. It wasn't because I really wanted to get one, but it was because my grandmama couldn't go to college because they couldn't pay $70 a year. She had a scholarship at Livingstone College. So I've been through some stuff. And yes, sir, I live in District 6. But I'm going to say this, as a representative of Charlotte City Council, I am representing Charlotte and I'm representing my district. I hear the challenges, but I'm here to meet the challenges holistically. And I hope that I can earn your trust and your faith in me, together working hand in hand for a better Charlotte. Thank you for the opportunity.
So much. Okay, now, Representative G, you know, what happens in Raleigh is very important also. Because a lot of questions that we ask are getting answered by Raleigh. Don't get too comfortable.
Thank you. Peace, everyone, and good morning. Thank you, Laura and Mary, for putting me on the bullseye.
You're used to it.
Yeah. My name is Nasib G, and I represent House District 99, which is Northeast Charlotte. And we just concluded, well, we're out of session now, and the governor signed the budget. It was $27.9 billion. I didn't vote for the budget because there were too many things that weren't addressed. One of the main things on my agenda is Medicaid expansion. last year in North Carolina, 320 people died as a result of not having health care. I think that's criminal. So that's one of the reasons I didn't sign the bill, because I think Medicaid expansion, this has been going on for a long time. Last session, the House had a version, but it wasn't accepted by the Senate. This year, the Senate has a version, but not accepted by the House. And when I say Democrats are not in the majority in the legislature. So I think it's a shell game, but in the meantime, people are dying because we don't have health care. And the money comes from the federal government. Between that, 90 to 95% coming down from federal government, another 5% or 10% coming from the hospitals. I don't see the reason why we shouldn't have Medicaid expansion. Another thing is cost of living adjustments for our retirees, state retirees. They don't get a cost. They didn't get a cost of living. I mean, come on. Teachers, I think they got 4%, a little over 4%. And the inflation rate is, what is it, 8.2%, 8.6%, 8.2%, something like that.
9.1.
Well, that was last month. Yeah, you're talking about the consumer price index. That's how much prices have been inflated. That's 9.1 or 2%. We have a $4 billion surplus. A $4 billion surplus. And we're giving a tax base to corporations, 0. North Carolina was the lowest. In the next few years, it's going to go to 0 corporate tax income. Now, those kind of funds could go to schools to help our school situation.
Thank you.
2 is there's a fund for the private schools. I think it's very, they haven't used all that money. I think about $50 million, $50 million, but they got another $50 million for private schools. And our public schools, the Leandro case, where people have a right to be educated, kids have a right to be educated, they put a little money over in that area. We got a $4 billion surplus. So these are reasons why I didn't sign the bill. And another area is being in a minority. One thing, the majority, they don't have a supermajority. And so we have been able to sustain all of the governor's vetoes from sort of ridiculous things, involving gun control, ICE detainees. It's a big thing with our Sheriff McFadden about the ICE detainees. They've had bills that go through. The governor has vetoed. Let me see some other things I have here. Health. They wanted to take away the governor's executive privileges. People didn't want to wear masks. They put people in as far as dangerous health conditions because he declared an emergency. And I think because they did that in coordination with the Department of Health and Human Services, we avoided a lot of deaths. So we've been able to block a lot of the foolishness that if they have a supermajority and were able to get this legislation passed, we'd be North Carolina. If we didn't have blocked what we did, North Carolina would be ahead in foolishness of Texas and Florida and Georgia. Now, that to say that 22 is coming up, and we do all right in the urban areas, but we need to do more if we're going to get. I'm a Democrat, okay? I'm not a Republican, and if we want to change things, we got to get people in office to change things. So it's very important. 22 is very important. As you say, in the state legislature, things happen in the state legislature that affect us. In 22, we want to get more Democrats in the legislative bodies on both sides of the House. We want, ideally, we want a majority, because with a majority, we had the committees and we can get things done and we can address some of this foolishness. North Carolina was known in the 90s as the education state. We're doing 180. And education for economic development is critical. We can't attract the industries. We don't have the people educated to fill the jobs. And right now, we got shortage of teachers, got teachers resigning. COVID hit hard. We got kids behind in grade level. It's very complex, but it boils down to our economic future and well-being in this community.
Okay, I know you have a lot.
Okay.
We're gonna have a couple of questions, but I want to ask you, why are the Republicans against Medicaid expansion? If it would help people.
Well, I look people in the eye. That's a question I have. I can't answer that. I don't know. 2 and 2 is not, I don't understand that logic. I don't understand that logic.
Okay, now, do we have any questions? But now it has to be able to be answered in a minute because we have like 5 minutes left. Okay, wait a minute. It was Winston and then Juanita and then I think.
Oh, can I say one more thing? Can I say one thing for the question? Sure. It's critical in the rural areas that we have on the ground activities to get more people to vote to register in the rural communities. I think it's Cynthia Wallace and Amy Steele are working on rural projects right now. And it's critical because we can do all right in the urban core, but it's in the rural areas that's why, and they maintain majority in the House, and that's our problem. That's our problem.
So remember, please, gotta be.
So which is kind of based on my question. You being in the state house know that North Carolina, Eastern North Carolina, is largely poor and largely black. How is it not being mobilized, and does the Alliance have anything to do with that? And will it kind of come back since the road?
Well, I as I said again, Dr. Steele, Amy Steele, and Cynthia Wallace, they got some concentrated programs working on called rural projects, working to get more people out and get more people involved to change that situation. That's
you
a
can
big
go
activity.
online to the rural project. That's exactly what they're doing. Okay. Jackie, and then I'm sorry, I'm not even going in the right order. It was Winston, and then Juanita, and then Christy.
Thank you so much, sir.
And remember, 30 seconds.
For your
30 seconds, we can.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
We are really pushing the time.
My question is, with the budget as large as it is, the new COVID and things like that are popping up, monkeypox and all of that, as well as gun violence. Does the budget, does it address anything like that with regard to reducing the gun violence? I know you're going to tee off the NRA, but also the other medical issues that are happening in communities today.
Well, one thing, our Department of Health and Human Services has done an excellent job to addressing the COVID issues and all of these viruses that are going on. Matter of fact, my newsletter, I think it's he sends out my newsletter. I have a newsletter, and the last one with the monkeypox. You can hit the link because I send it in periodically. But I think the last newsletter, what we're doing and how we're doing is addressed, and I think that's information that you need to know.
And gun violence.
And gun violence. Well, we can't get the bills passed because we're not a majority. We can stop a lot of crazy bills that they're presenting to about gun control. We've been able to stop a lot of that those crazy gun laws that they're trying to implement. But that's the best we can do right now. That's the best we can do right now. Unfortunately, they have not gotten anything through because the governor's vetoed and we've sustained the governor's veto.
Okay, Christie.
So with the numbers that you read, what are the top things that those monies go to? Like with the numbers that you read off, what are the top things that are funded by?
Well, I think education is the biggest part of the budget. Education is the biggest part of that budget. You know, you got public safety and all that those kind of situations.
But we still.
But we still not satisfied Leandro, and we still have a lot of teachers exiting the system. And you know, the only way to solve the problem is to work on the problem. And right now, we're not putting enough in to deter the subsequent problems that we're gonna
Okay,
experience.
I just wanted to know, you said 50 million to public, but you said, is it to private or is it to charter?
The whole private charter, private, the private situation, for the private schools. Mm-hmm.
So it's
and charters operate under that.
But I just wanted clarification. Thank you.
I think some charters are private and some are. We want to thank you so much for coming today. You're going to get the word out.
Yes, please.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone, for coming. Oh, wait a minute before you go. Next Tuesday, we will not have the forum because it is election day.
Oh, that's right.
So we will not be here. You got it? Winston, you got it? We're not going to be here. Thank you.